And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dragons, Gazelles, and Unicorns podcast and webinar. Again, I'm Rosemary Truman, founder and CEO of the Center for Advanced Innovation. I'm very delighted to welcome Grant Anderson, his extraordinary mind, and at the intersection of engineering, operational optimization, aerospace, human performance, and the future of how we will live in space. And what I particularly appreciate about Grant is how we safely and sustainably put human beings in space. But that is precisely what makes this conversation so interesting. Because we are talking about a pilot falling asleep. And this is a story that Grant told me about a pilot falling asleep, which made me sad. Also, he knows something very, very important about seemingly mundane as drinking water. And the question is the same. What does the evidence actually tell us about how we engineer a better system around us? And that is Grant. And that, Grant has a very important story. So, Grant is rock star, architecting, engineering, aerospace, and operations. And why did you do it?
Wow. Yeah, that's a big one. I started actually when I was 8 years old, believe it or not. I traveled that year. My father was an American diplomat, and we were transferred to Belgium. And we flew on a 747 from New York to Amsterdam and then hopped down to Brussels, actually. And the 747 had been flying about 10 months at that time. So this was early fall of 91. And I just remember walking up and down the aircraft and being totally fascinated with the thing. I mean, these huge engines just swinging in the wind, and they were swinging a little bit. It was kind of a rough crossing. And that got me hooked. And so I became a real airplane nut, just the modern equivalent of a train nut. I had to know everything about airplanes, built model airplanes. I even designed a hypersonic airplane and sent the design to Boeing when I was about 15 or so. But then that sort of transition in the late 70s to the space shuttle, because of course that was being built and there was a lot of articles coming out about it. It was going to be launched, and Michael Collins wrote a very good book on it. And so space was very interesting to me. I chose my actually chose my undergraduate university because of its graduate program in aeronautics and astronautics. I knew I wanted to get into that. And so I got my BS in mechanical, my master's in aeroastro, graduated. And between my undergrad and grad year, I interned for Lockheed Missiles and Space Company in Sunnyvale, California. I ended up going there and working for 10 years, rising to being the designer of the space station solar arrays. So I was the head design engineer. So I was in charge of that design after a few years on that program. And what really fascinated me was having to do the astronaut interfaces. We always had these contingencies. If something failed, the astronaut had to go fix it. So we had to make it sure the astronauts could fix it. And so I got very interested in the human element, and then realized that nobody was really paying attention to the humans. To some degree, the attitude was, space is about rockets, but the human space flight isn't about rockets. It's a biology program. You're putting a human in space. You just happen to have a rocket behind him or her when you're lighting the candle, so to speak. So that's how I got into it, and then started my company, Paragon Space Development Corporation, in 1993, focusing solely on keeping people alive in extreme environments. Space being the ultimate extreme environments, the vast majority of his work, but we did do terrestrial stuff too, diving equipment, the mine safety equipment, and stuff like that. So that was sort of my journey to get to where I am today, so to speak. And I just retired from Paragon in December after 33 years of every level of the company, in which we'll get into with operations from, chief cook and bottle washer all the way to the president and CEO. So.
I want to hear about the chief bottle washer.
When you work in wet chemistry with humans, you do have bottles to wash, and and collecting urine and all those types of things.
Oh my God! Pardon me. What do you think that was the pinnacle?
The pinnacle of my career? Oh, wow. I mean, I was blessed to have a long enough career. There was probably a bunch of highlights. Launching the first commercial payload to the space station out of Baikonur in early 2001. Breaking the skydiving record. Paragon has the skydiving record. Alan Eustace was the gentleman we did it with. That pushed the Red Bull and Felix Baumgartner out of the record books from a standpoint of the highest exit altitude. They still have some records. We still have some records. Frankly, the first time we launched something on shuttle, the first digital PCR camera we launched on the shuttle in 1996, and then probably winning with Lockheed the Orion program, having dinner with Elon Musk in 2002 before he started SpaceX to talk about space, and then working with that company for 10 years. There's just so many highlights. It's hard to pick one that say this is the pinnacle. But I was, like I said, I was blessed with a long career, and I will say a little bit about being a kind of a serial entrepreneur. And I didn't even mention it. I helped start an airline in college and helped expand another one. So I've been blessed to just have a lot of experiences, and it comes about from curiosity, and we'll talk about that later probably.
I think that the people who are listening to this, they want to know, how did you remain tenacious?
Wow. I'm just stubborn as hell. From a standpoint of, when you have a dream, you have a mission, and something gets in the way, it never even crosses your mind that I'm going to abandon the dream or mission. It's a new parameter. It's a new variable, if you want to talk in engineering terms, that you have to factor into your equations and work around it. And multiple times, especially with Paragon, there have been barriers put in the way, and there was especially breaking into something. So let's just say the players were very ossified at that point as who did what for human spaceflight, and becoming a new player, you couldn't take no for an answer. You couldn't be discouraged. Turning to your friends, or in this case, my business partners, to discuss things out and come out with a new way to do something. That's just how you have to be. If you're not tenacious, don't start a company. Something's going to be thrown your way.
The thing is that, so Grant, I don't keep to my script, but the thing is that, how do you know if your partners are real good partners? How do you know?
Well, they have the same tenacity. They don't try to discourage you. And I think more than anything else, when you get in a room, nobody's opinion is better than anybody else's. You start with people who respect your opinion, you respect their opinions, and you work to come up with a solution that everybody can agree has the highest probability, and your abilities right now, the highest probability of actually getting to where you want to go. And it's, again, coming down to the mission and the goal you have. And if you're focused on that, alignment happens really well. I think that's what Elon does really well. He states a mission out publicly. He's consistent in what he says to his employees about it, making humans a multi-planetary species, and sticks with it and doesn't change his mind every 6 months. And that's part of it, I think. The other one is that you speak to your strengths. We actually had something at Paragon called functional contracts. Your function is this. Your function as the president. Here's what the functions the president do. These are your purview. This is what you need as information for me to do your job. But it is your job. And for 22 of the 33 years as a Paragon, one of my functions was vice president of engineering, which meant that, well, it was the title. The function was to maintain the integrity and the excellence of the engineering within the organization. So I took that very seriously. And as long as you have those functions understood among the people in your company, it's hard to stop you.
you keep on going, right, to your a very specific, tenacious plan. And I would say even it's even interesting other words about tenaciousness. But the thing is that how do you remain that way? Like, for example, I
Yeah. I think it's got to be a little ingrained in your personality, but really to remain that way is to not forget the mission. Paragon's mission statement was never changed in the 33 years. We always had the same mission, for life support in extreme environments for humans and to be the best at it. And so as long as you keep that in mind. In fact, one of my red flags with companies is if their mission keeps changing. That means to me that they're not really invested in the idea. They're invested in maybe making money, only making money, but don't care what the idea is. And you got to have both really to have an organization that's really going to fly, I guess, and really accelerate or be a gazelle or a unicorn, as you call them, right?
Yeah, but so just getting back to gazelles. So gazelles are companies that will triple in their amount of companies or people they employ, right? Unicorns, $1 billion after 3 years. Dragons are only one. There's only one that exists, and that's $5 billion after 1 year. So, like, obviously, those are the paramount of what I do with my podcast. But the thing is that what I have observed from your company is you're not just a gazelle, you're also a unicorn. You're both. And you're doing it on the basis, if I may say so, you can perhaps correct me. This is something that's very, very, something that people say all the time. Operational optimization, but it's not like what you actually do. You're like strategically, you're very strategic about operational optimization, and you actually have like this target, about how you optimize things. But it's not like optimizing. I don't even like the word, because the word doesn't even describe exactly what you do, because what you do is much more profound. So the thing is that I would like to know is what's your trajectory on that. But even though it doesn't even, I mean, it's people, process, technology, data, whatever, incentives. I mean, this is, I mean, you don't do pilots. You do. It's not. You never do a pilot. I mean, so let's observe. You don't even do pilots, because your pilots are like baby. They're like little babies. you're like on ground zero. Like, let's get this shit done now, and you do it. So you don't take failure for, like, failure is not an opportunity. Failure is just that you are not designed around a pilot, because you just get things done. So how do you engineer systems that really become that humans can become tired, distracted, imperfect? I mean, we already talked about that, but what are, I think the main question is, what companies get wrong? What are the people that get people wrong? What people get wrong?
Okay, this is the Grant Anderson MBA in 5 minutes answer to that. Every single business in the world, doesn't matter if it's a candy store or an aerospace company, is a process that produces more value than it costs, period. That's it. That's any company. That's even a nonprofit. And very often people focus on the value, which is the price your customer is willing to pay, or the cost, which is easy. That's just GAAP, general accounting principles type stuff. What they forget is the word process at the beginning of that a business is a process. And Optimization, if you optimize, say, just the cost, but and that's very often done by trimming processes and making processes more efficient. If the customer doesn't see the value of it, it's actually not an optimization of the business itself. So I think that's one thing you have to be very careful about. So when I go into a company to look at a company, or I'm talking to a part of a company that's having problems, the first thing I'll do is say, go up on the board and draw out the process from you to get your information or your part, and have it come out the other end something with value. And it's interesting how many people can't do that. They don't understand the process. You look like you're going to ask a question there.
Yeah. So so then the other question I have for you is, what does value mean?
Well, value to me is what your customer really thinks the value is of anything. If your customer is the U.S. government and thinks a jet is worth $137 million, it's worth $137 million. Then your job is to come up with a process that will produce it for less than $137 million so you can make a profit. And some do that spectacularly and they make a 500% gross margin, and some of them don't do it well and they make a 1% gross margin, like a supermarket. Well, supermarkets do it pretty well, but they have limited margins. So, back to the whole thing with the process, it's the value, or I should say, the value of a business is what your customer determines it to be. Now, you can do many things to influence what their perception of your value is, how you sell things. That's why advertising exists, to give people an idea that your value is more than just the dollar amount that they pay for it. But in the end, it really comes down to what your customer is willing to pay is your value to anybody. And it may be in some financial engineering terms, and on Wall Street, there's differences of that idea, but it really comes down to what your customer is willing to pay.
Okay. So, and then how do you determine what your customer is willing to pay?
Well, you go out and you present the product to them and ask them and say it's worth X that dollars, and if they choke on it, you haven't hit the value proposition they're thinking of. And if they smile and say, we'll take 50, you've probably undersold yourself. And there's somewhere in between there. It is one of the harder things. I mean, there's whole PhDs that are given out, probably a few hundred a year, on just doing nothing but determining what your customer is willing to pay for something and what their value they see in the product. But the value is not always totally monetary. I mean, it's the people are willing to pay a lot of money for a fancy sports car. It's what you feel about yourself. That's a lot of the marketing from Madison Avenue marketing is how does it make you feel about yourself? You think of perfume marketing, it's water in a bottle with some stuff in it. And don't if anybody's who's listening to this in the perfume business, don't give me a lecture. But maybe even Coca-Cola, it's sugar in a can. There's a certain mystique about, and the reason I brought up perfume, that they have a good-looking male or female, depending on whether it's a perfume or a cologne, and they sell a whole lifestyle around it that is part of the psychology of you buying something. So this isn't a podcast about the psychology of buying necessarily, but it's good stuff to know. When I go into a customer trying to sell $100 million system or a $20 million system, when I used to, my first part of my mouth, and a little bit like a salesperson, was why this is worth that much to you.
Right.
And then go from there, and why, by the way, ours is even worth more. Paragon was never the low cost leader on anything. We were the best at what we did, and so that's the important thing. In the case of life support, we had one easy tagline, which is that nobody wants to be in the second best life support system. There isn't an astronaut that says, "Oh, I don't want the best. I want the second best life support system." So in some ways, that sold itself in some areas.
So I wanted to get your opinion about Okay, so I want to go back to your life support system situation.
Mhm.
Um, this is something that people don't know about. Can you just describe it a little bit more? A little tiny, a little bit
Sure.
more.
Sure. There's really five functions of life support. One is to keep you breathing. The other one is to keep you at the right temperature. The other one is to feed you, and then to take care of your bodily wastes. We are batch processors. We tend to eat at meals, and we poop when we poop. And if you want, I can use all the scientific terms, fecate and urinate and everything, but it's poo and pee. It still is. Um, and then there's the basic items that are not necessarily life-threatening, what we call them human systems. That might be the shaving system, your sleeping system, things like that. Although you go without sleep, you can get extremely dangerous anywhere. But so that's really what a life support system is, keeping you with the right oxygen so you can breathe without having an oxygen deprivation, taking away the poisons you put out, and then keeping you at a temperature in which you can operate, which is usually 70 plus or minus 5 degrees, maybe a little tighter when you're sleeping. That's really what life support's all about in the general public sense of what life support is about.
So, okay, let's pretend uh, I'm on life support. So I have I'm very happy. I have these tennis pros in my house. Them, they're very nice. But the thing is, I think they're on life support. The thing is that like they basically don't sleep. And like look, okay, my life has been
Mhm.
out on Sunday at like 4, 2, 3, 4, and back on Friday for 24 years. That was my life. And
Mhm.
I was on life support theoretically, because basically you don't sleep and when you're in the airplanes for 42 hours a week in the year. Why do people need to sleep like
Mhm.
15 hours a day? Why is it?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's physiology is a little bit different, but we're all in kind of the same box. There's basic human needs that you need. Sleep. There's a lot of studies on sleep and what it happens in your brain. Why do you dream? Why do you not dream for portions of it? But I think more than anything else, it is a function that organizes your day and rearranges your brain based upon the latest input. We are highly adaptive creatures. There's something called epigenetics, which is the expression of certain genes at certain times, depending on what your external stressors are. And I think part of, in my opinion, and I'm not a doctor, is that your sleep allows your body and your brain to do its little rearranging based upon what its experiences are, putting your experiences in context. I think a lot of dreams are putting those experiences in context. Um, and But some need less, some need more. We do know that if you deprive people of sleep, the vast majority of people who sleep for more than 72 hours or so, they're going to start going a little psychotic. They will start having.
Fantastic.
uh, hmm?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, they start having hallucinations. Yeah, that's why one of the enhanced interrogation techniques are to keep somebody awake and not let them sleep, because it really muddles the brain, and can drive you pretty much insane. So you need sleep. There's no question about it. I think some people are more efficient than others, and I think part of why some people sleep a lot more than others are the efficiency of which they've learned to sleep. And there are definitely stages of your life when you're a teenager, you need to sleep more because your brain's growing so fast and a few other things. But that's also a good indication of what's happening. Generally, when your brain is in full development, you sleep more as a human than when you're supposedly no longer in development. Although they say that your brain is evolving all the time. Uh,
So then I wanted to go back to something. I mean, for God's sakes, that's like pretty amazing
mhm.
information. I never thought of it because the thing is, I don't sleep very much.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I wanted to outline was that that gave me some very important information about water.
Mhm.
So the thing is that, like, they say you need to drink what, like a bottle of water, like this big,
Mhm.
and um, and so actually, that's interesting thing to advertise. But what's true is that you should not drink that much water, right? Because then I don't know, you pee too much. I don't have any idea. Like what is the human situation about drinking a lot of water? I mean, like, because frankly, I can't. I mean, my body
Mhm.
can't hold it. You know.
Mhm.
So, oh, that's true. Mm.
Right. Um, okay. The basic taking humans down to their basic thing. We are an osmotic bag. We're a bag of cells that all need to metabolize and make energy and produce waste, and we flush those wastes out through our system. We have evolved over millions of years, all the way from when multi-cell creatures started, getting away from a continuous feeding cycle of being batch processors. We sit down, we eat meals, we generally drink it. We used to at least drink when we had water, and if you were walking somewhere, yes, you could carry some with you, but you didn't take a sip every 5 seconds. So the whole 8 glasses of water a day was based on a lot of BS. We know that humans will put out anywhere from 1.2 to 2 liters of urine a day, and um, and there's and that's less than, especially 1.2 liters is much less than 8 cups of water. Hey, we have to know these things. I have to deal with them. You need the tanks big enough to hold them. Um, and what I see, especially with humans today, we're walking around with a water bottle, sipping it on all the time, is not how we evolved, not how we should go. Also, a lot of our water comes from things we consume that is not water. I had eggs this morning. I had
Brussels
so,
sprouts.
yeah, Brussels sprouts, whatever. There's moisture in within almost anything we eat, any vegetables, any fruits and stuff like that. Any some meats, not quite as much, but so adding 8 glasses of water on top of that is excessive. Now, mind you, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I do know I live in the desert. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and of course there they say don't wait till you're thirsty to drink, and that gets taken to the extreme of drink all the time. That's not true. I'm also a bicyclist, and I'll be out in 95-degree weather.
Okay, let's just talk about this. It's not
Yeah,
like a bicyclist. He's not like a bicyclist. He's like on steroids, bicyclist. So
yeah,
he's just like humble over there. Okay, we're just like
yeah.
talking about this, right?
Yeah, I every 2 years I do a 600-mile bike ride over 6 days, so I do about 100 miles a day. So yes, I do bike a fair amount, and I found that I drink a lot less water than others, and I have no problem associated with that. Again, I think drinking all the time is your body is set up for a batch process, and the osmotic potentials and stuff will pull waste out of your cell system and flush it out through your liver and your kidneys and everything else. And if you continuously run that, you're gonna hurt yourself, I think. And I know, as somebody who's had kidney stones twice in my life, and I know somebody who's listening to was like, yeah, see, he's had kidney stones. He hasn't been drinking enough. One of them was in 2001. One of them was 2 years ago. That's really not caused by not drinking enough water. It has to do with more of diet and a bunch of other chemicals you put in your body. But the long or short of it is, you eat a meal, you drink with the meal because the water helps process the meal. If you're drinking all the time, it's not doing what you think it's doing. And so I would just read the literature. And anybody who says, "Oh, you need eight glasses of water a day," is not up to date on what we really know about what the human really needs.
But the main question is the Grant Anderson gauntlet, and I called it that. Most overrated conventional wisdom.
Oh wow, there's a lot of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the idea that people work on basic facts and will change their opinion when the facts don't support it, I found that that's a piece of conventional wisdom that's not true, and we're finding it all the time. But I would say, especially from my world in the world of human spaceflight, the conventional wisdom that we know what is required to get humans to Mars and back, and that we've got that handled in general, and that we can adapt to space is still an open question in the long term. It's right now the longest we've been in space any one time is over 300 days, but we do a lot of mitigation things. We really don't know what's happening with the human body at all. We are in the infancy of human monitoring in space and what is happening to a body that is being exposed to a microgravity environment, which it has never been exposed to in the 600 million years of evolution. I think there's a fair amount of hubris to the medical community on that they understand the human body completely. I have been known in my public speaking to say it's like putting a microscope up against the ass of an elephant and confidently saying that its trunk is okay. We're looking at a 34 trillion cell creature, which is how many cells we have in our body, seeing a few changes, making a few tweaks, and saying we know exactly what's happening in this complex system. On a more prosaic level, at the base, I think like on Earth, I think we tend to say humans are doing this and this is having this effect on Earth, or humans are doing this and this is how we're going to supply energy in the future, and almost all of those are based in current technology, current facts, and they don't allow for innovation in the future. And innovation is going to happen. Innovation takes three drivers: either cost, time, or the technology itself. You limit any one of those three, and people are going to innovate around it to, again, be tenacious and get to the goal they want. And I think we undersell innovation all the time. Sometimes we overhype it, like with AI, but I think AI has been overhyped to some degree. But it's an interesting blind spot that we have as human beings. I'm sure I would come up with 5 more if you give me some time, but I'd like you to, you can keep going on with the interview, and if I come up with one that's absolutely brilliant, I'll tell you.
Well, I'm looking through my questions. I have a lot of questions for you, but so I'm a CEO. You're the CEO of Paragon.
Used to be, yes.
Yeah. So if there's one thing you should stop doing tomorrow, what would it be?
Insisting on PowerPoint.
Oh, damn.
I hate PowerPoint. Power corrupts, PowerPoint corrupts, absolutely. No, and let me be more specific what that is. Any business is a detailed operation. And while PowerPoint summaries at the ERP level and looking at numbers is all good, it doesn't really tell you how a company is going. A company can be making a really good profit and be falling apart at the same time. I think so. One thing that CEOs should stop doing is it's sitting and absorbing information from PowerPoints. Go out and actually ask the people that are really doing the work.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Go out and, if you're having if even if the company is running smoothly, it's like a Swiss watch, you feel, go out to the shop and say, hey, what's your biggest problem today? And you will get an earful on things. If you've been shown that you're open to this information, you don't immediately fire the person that tells you the problem. You will get great ideas, some warnings out of that, and you've got to be able to look at those and absorb them, and you can't do that in a PowerPoint. PowerPoints are made to sell, and the mid managers and stuff are trying to sell you that they're doing a good job. So if there's something that they know is kind of going off the rails, you won't hear about it until.
Oh my God! May I please say thank you?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Sure. I think it affects all organizations, but especially engineering organizations, things that people, organizations that build things. There is no shortcut to building something. You can make it simple, you can make it, but in the end, it comes down to the details. One thing I really like about Elon is he does not shy away from details. He'll go and ask about the material properties of the alloy you're using in an engine part. So it comes down to that. That's what makes things work. It's never going to just because it looks good on a spreadsheet and a PowerPoint presentation does not mean it's going to work, I guess is the way to put it.
So what do you think? Is it tenaciousness or resilience? What defines it?
Resilience, I think. But not, I mean, resilience is more important than tenacity, I think, to some degree, because you can get down on yourself. Resilience is getting hit and then standing back up anyway. Each blow you take can hurt you in your ego, in your confidence in yourself. Yes, it will hurt you sometimes financially, depending on what the blow is. But being able to absorb that and reset yourself, that's resilience. Whereas tenacity is just busting through it, despite the scars and despite you've just lost your left leg and your right arm going through somewhere. But the resilience is being able to recover from it and keep your mind about you when you're taking those blows, I guess is the way to put it.
May I please say, so there's this poem, right? It's about the kings. You keep your mind about you.
Mm-hmm.
You are, damn it, I don't know the poem, but you keep your mind about you when everybody else is saying goodbye. So you're talking about resilience. And
Yeah.
By the way, I think this is an extremely important point that you made about tenacity versus resilience, because by the way, there's another important question. What do you look for in a company? A myriad or a plethora?
Well, a plethora tends to imply a lot of one thing. A myriad is definitely a word that means a lot of many different things. And I think that's what you're looking for in a company. It's a little bit going back to those functional contracts I talked about. One of the things I teach CEOs to do is come up with all the functions you need to make your mission happen. If you're an insurance company, you need to be able to write the policies, you need to be able to price the policies and all these other things. But if you're an aerospace company, you need the engineering and the tests and everything else. When you start a company, those functions are all there, but there's only two people doing them. There may be 40 functions you need, but there's only two people. I mean, when Paragon started, I was the CFO, I was the vice president of engineering, I was the operations officer, and I was also the chief margarita officer, by the way, too, because that was needed definitely while starting a company. CMO, that was my first real title at Paragon, chief margarita officer. But
Well,
you need that.
I didn't get into that. Why I didn't get into that service of the margarita officer?
But those myriad of different capabilities are hard to find in a lot of people, but that's what you need. There's nothing more valuable than an employee that can do multiple things. And especially in my industry, we were a very niche industry, and you had to go through design and build and test. And there's lumps in all of them. You need 20 designers, and then you need 20 manufacturing people, then you need 20 test people. If you can have a few people go across those lines, for one thing, it maintains continuity and knowledge, which maybe AI will help a little bit. But the other thing is that you don't have to hire the people and work on these stovepipe different things. And that's what myriad means to me with a new company. The other thing is myriad of opportunities. You have a vision, what you want to do, and maybe you want to build a certain product and you think it'll go in this market really well. You find out you were wrong, but it will go in this market very well, or go in this market. So I do look at something that is marketable to multiple areas just by little tweaks. Very often something that is made of value for one, it loses its value over time because a better technology comes in or something else. And looking to repurpose that technology for a different purpose is really important too. So wow, myriad is a tough word. I don't use it that often, but I do use it.
So that's why I was asking you the question, because the thing is that people don't know the difference between a myriad and a platform.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably true.
And so, Grant, just because I have kept you longer than I
I'm
you're
in good shape.
that
You
thing
got all the time you need.
you're very kind. That thing that I think that is really critically important is what are you going to do next, and why?
What am I going to do next? Well, there's a few things. Some of this is what I've been saying. I have at the tip of my tongue because I'm writing a book on it. On how the working title is how to be a beta CEO, and that has to do with just the way that I lead. I'm not an alpha, yell at my way or the highway type person. So I'm writing a fair amount. I'm getting involved in politics some. I've always wanted to be. My father was again a diplomat, so we talk politics every day almost around the table. But there are restrictions, unfortunately, in this world today about expressing political views because of the cancel culture and stuff like that. That you got to be careful. When I was the president CEO, one of the things that was always at my forefront of my mind is that I was responsible for the livelihood of 150, 200 people, and I could say something wrong that could kill the business. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in right now. So I'm able to be a little more free and talk. I've always written, but I've done different. I've had to pull back a little bit. I'm not radical in anything, I think, but I think I have some things to offer to the conversation. Advising companies. I have a few VCs that have asked me to advise them on the investments they make. I love doing that. Going in and learning new technologies. I mean, learning something new is part of my curiosity thing that has kept me going for a long time. So learning about it and learning about it in a detail enough that I can give cogent advice based upon my experiences. So the giving VCs advice and then mentoring CEOs. I do specialize in mentoring female CEOs because one thing I didn't mention is Paragon was a woman-owned company of the first 22 years. Women have a different set of challenges with running a company than men do very often, and how to work around them. They definitely bring different things to the table and how to make those assets. I've watched other women do it, and yes, it can sound like mansplaining when a guy's telling a female CEO how to do something, but I'm sensitive to that. And then also travel. I did a fair amount of traveling as a president and CEO, but it was always for an objective: going to Russia to launch something, going to Florida to launch something, going to different companies to check on technologies. And then once I got high enough, it was mainly having to do with sales, going to conferences and stuff like that. I've never been south of the equator in my life. Can you believe it or not? I grew up internationally, 13 of my first 18 years, not in the United States, and I have never been south of the equator. So I'm going to break that real soon.
Oh my gosh, that's craziness.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be South America, New Zealand, or wherever else, but I'm going to go south or South Africa or south of the equator in Africa. I don't know, but I'm going to get south of the equator, and when I do that, I'm going to pop a bottle of champagne. It's a bucket list item for me. And meeting new people. I belong to a group called Internations where it's people that are expats in other people's countries or have been expats, and it's great. I get to meet people all the time. And I do something called Time Left, which is like dinner with strangers. So whenever I travel, I sign up and I go have dinner with people I've never met.
By the way, Time Left. Let me just say, let me put a point on this, because the thing is, I never heard of it before, and so he was at the airport, and I've been in airports all the time, when basically I'm like by myself, right? And I saw this beautiful picture with Grant Anderson and all these beautiful people. And then we just put a pinpoint on those because, like, I've not heard Leader Nation, but the thing is that the time left, I think,
Mhm.
I mean, it left me with something in my soul because
Yep.
when you're alone and you're in the airport, like for God's sakes, you're like basically alone in the airport, and then there's people that they all want to just hang out. I shouldn't say hang out, but they want to hang out means having a booty call, but no, it's not booty calls. It's it's not booty calls. It's
Mhm.
these are people that they want to meet other people, and
Mhm.
um, Grant Anderson figured this out, and I'm grateful. I mean, everyone should know about this, and then also the Leader Nation. I'm sure that I haven't looked that up, but by the way, but
Yeah.
I'm positive that's going to be perfecto for everybody listening. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, Grant Anderson walks on water, so we won't say more about that. It's true.
Mhm. I might be down up in my ankles at least right now. I don't know. You got to have faith to walk on water, right? Isn't that the biblical thing, right? Peter loses his faith and starts to sink on the Sea of Galilee. Anyway, yeah, no, it's called Internations is the other one. Internations. And they're a smaller organization, so it's very active in Phoenix, but not in Tucson. So I don't get to as many events, but they do a lot of online stuff. And I was just online with a bunch of people from all over the world. They were in Tokyo, they were in the Netherlands, United States, Switzerland, just yesterday. And it's just having moved 8 times in 18 years growing up, meeting new people and finding out who they are and asking questions of them and learning new perspectives. That's just really important to me. And frankly, it combined with my technical love of technical stuff like flying things, I think was one of my reasons for success is that I was always curious of people. And I never ever took somebody's performance as a absolute, you didn't do this therefore you're fired type thing. People don't perform for two reasons in life: because they don't have the ability or they don't have the motivation to do it. Those are your two. Everybody
That's
fails
very
because one of
important.
those.
That's very
Hmm?
important. They don't
Yes.
have the time and they don't have the capability.
Yes, right. They don't have the capability and they don't have the motivation to do so. And very often, this is one of the pieces of advice I give female CEOs. Males will almost always hide their inability to do something by
Uh-huh.
stating it's by motivation. The teenager, like, I don't really care type thing is very much a male way of protecting themselves from having to say, I don't know how to do
Oh my
this.
gosh. Yes.
And and um and
Yes.
so definitely you need to ferret that out when I had one employee,
This is very
absolutely great performer, fantastic performer. And Paragon used to do reviews every quarter actually, and that's a whole nother thing about a review shouldn't be about reviewing what they're doing in the past. It's more about studying what they're going to do in the future. But um his performance went to crap. I mean, just went to shit. And I knew the guy, and I called him in and I said, Tom, what's wrong? And he goes, my wife asked for a divorce. And so he had fallen apart for a little while. And I gave him grace, as Ted Lasso would say. I gave him love, and I just said, go deal with that, Tom. Don't worry about it. Come back when you're ready. I mean, he wasn't fired. He was still working. He was good enough that even his not his best was good. And 6 months later, he had resolved the problem and everything else, and he was back up to being a top performer. You've got to really be curious about people's lives to manage them well, I guess is the way to put it. And that's part of being a beta CEO versus an alpha CEO. Alpha CEOs don't care about the people that work with them necessarily. So,
yeah, but Grant, you're saying something is extremely important. Extremely important. The the thing is that most people don't give a shit, right? What you just said right now is
mhm.
no one really cares about their employees. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it's the truth.
Yeah, no, Paragon, one of the motivating factors for starting it was I had worked in a large aerospace company and I still remember my employee number from that. And ultimately, you get to a certain size and the individual no longer matters. I'm an anti-centralization person. I think that centralizing power in almost any aspect reduces the dignity of the people that work, that are the person's self-dignity. So I mean, to me, humans they've got two things. They got dignity and they got belonging. And those are the two things they need. And frankly, almost before food and water and air. Um, and, uh, and so preserving that is really important. Um, I think Elon does really good in the belonging section because, again, the mission statement is you're belonging. You're belonging to something bigger than yourself that's doing something bigger than yourself. He wasn't quite so good on the self-dignity and maintaining the dignity of people as much, and that's why ultimately I think we parted ways as far as working together.
Oh, that's okay. So if you were to have a final word about what to say to entrepreneurs that want to um, really do well, like you have, what would you say?
Well, going back to the business school 101, businesses are a process that produce more value than they cost. For an entrepreneur, think about process. Don't think about people. Think about the functions you need to get a process done and build your company around the best way to get that process done. And then I think the other one is don't get discouraged. This is part of the not the tenacity, but the resilience. You're going to get knocked down a bunch of times. I mean, grit. There's some fairly famous TEDx's on that. Grit was the first factor that told, well, somebody's going to be successful, why somebody's not going to be successful is if they didn't have grit. And the other one is believe in yourself.
Oh, that's a very important point. That's very
yeah, no, I had a reason to take a narcissist test about 8 months ago, because somebody for the first time ever had accused me of being a narcissist, which is interesting because
you're the opposite of a narcissist, for God's
well,
sake.
that's it. Is that my executive assistants and said one of them was a very wise executive assistant. She said, "Grant, your biggest flaw is you're too nice," and I can tell you that doesn't describe a narcissist at all. And I got a score of 37 out of 100 on it. Well, what does that mean? Well, it was interesting because then they had, if you scored, 0 to 20, if you had 20 to 40, and the 20 to 40 was you are more likely to start a company because you have enough self-confidence in yourself to say, hey, I know I can do this better than somebody else. But you don't necessarily have so much self-confidence that you're going to crash and burn and go off the cliff. You are willing to ask questions. You are willing to change your mind. So I got a 37 out of 100 on the narcissist scale. I'm perfectly happy with that. A flaming narcissist gets 60 or above or so, and 80 and above is a pathological narcissist almost.
Oh my God.
But so you got to believe in yourself, but you also got to be open to other people. And I think finally, learn how to work with no sleep. No, that's not really true. That's not really true. And in fact, you can measure your success about how well you can sleep at night. And again, going off the bit, what?
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's two aspects of that. I mean, you can be so dismissive that nothing bugs you and you can go to sleep, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is when you can go to sleep at night knowing that the challenges coming to you tomorrow or the challenges you're facing today are not going to kill you or not going to kill your company or whatever else, it means you have both confidence in yourself and you have confidence in the people that work for you. And that means you built the right team. And then ultimately it comes down to your team and how well they work together. And if you keep an eye on the process and the functions and stuff like that, and you've got that team, that's more precious. That's why most venture capitalists, they say the first thing they look at is who's the team starting the company. That is the number one indicator, right, of success. It's not the technology. It's not the next wildest thing. It's really who's the team that's putting this together.
I was going to say something. I want to say that what Grant just said is the most important thing that you should ever remember, ever. And we're going to highlight that in our notes. I mean, like that commentary at the end of this conversation is like critically important. It's not like a little tiny thing. It's not a baby thing. It's not a big baby. It's not a little baby. It's like the most important thing you should remember as one of the most important things, in my opinion, of the whole conversation. Because what he gave you was wisdom. It's not like a little bit of wisdom, a lot of wisdom. And I'm very, very grateful for his time.
That I'm
And
willing to expound on that wisdom at $300 an hour, just so you know.
yeah, he's amazing. So I wanted to say thank you so much, Grant, for your time and everything. I mean, basically, you just made the world move today. It's true.
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me on this podcast. You asked me, and I think I said yes before you got the whole question out of your mouth. I've always admired what you do, and the group that you put together to do it. So always happy to help.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.